Bill Maher discussed the Supreme Court McCutcheon ruling on Friday with his panel, and he ripped them a new asshole.
Now there's found another way to give money to let rich people have more influence. You used to be able to give $5,200 to any one candidate. That's still true. But there was a total cap of $123,000. Now that's gone. You know, they say that the Constitution was created by geniuses so idiots could run it. Remember that old quote? I need to amend that. I think the idiots found a way to break it.
Well,
I did. I think the idiots have finally won over the geniuses.
Bill, let me start. I think the whole campaign finance, although it was well-intentioned, was misdirected because all it did is starve the parties of money. It said parties cannot raise certain soft dollars. Where's that money going to go? Yeah, but because, no, this is going back to McCain-Feingold because it limited how they could raise money. But the myth was that somehow this money would disappear from the political sphere. Instead of going to the parties, which have been a centering force in American democracy for 200 years, that party ended up on the wings, left and right. And then Citizens United put it on steroids. But this goes back to campaign finance reform and weakening political parties. This decision strengthens parties. I think that's a good thing.
Do you see a connection between the fact that on so many issues, the American people, by overwhelming numbers, I'm not talking about 51%, like 80% of Americans want to see limits on campaign finance. 75% want to see the minimum wage. Higher numbers even than that want to see some form of gun control. That these things are absolutely dead in our Congress, doesn't that have something to do with the fact of what I'm talking about here? Doesn't this indicate democracy is a little broken?
They're putting restrictions on free speech.
Okay.
It's a First Amendment issue, straight out.
Well,
this is essentially saying that people have the right to...
It's a ruling by the court. It's not a...
Well, they interpret the Constitution. Well, Bill,
but let me quote what John Roberts, because he's the one who ruled on this. He wrote the ruling. Of course, he had the complicity of his other four conservative judges. He said, spending large sums of money in connection with elections does not give rise to quid pro quo corruption.
Well, Bill,
nor does the possibility that an individual who spends large sums may garner influence over elected officials. Either he is a liar or he is too naive to hold any important job, including and especially this one. This is like a legal ruling written by the Little Mermaid.
You know, this isn't a partisan issue. It's set up on the panel there like it is a partisan issue. But in reality, I mean, what? One poll said 80% of the American people think money in politics is a huge problem. Another one has 90% of the American people saying that. Okay, Democrats and Republicans both agree. It's not just, you know, me and some arugula-eating, latte-sipping liberal book club that agree that money shouldn't control our politicians. It's also a bunch of fucking NASCAR fans sitting on a couch in the middle of Tuscaloosa, Alabama right now that don't want their politicians representing just rich people or just unions, for example. That's one of their go-to talking points on this issue. So the fact that they're even debating him on it is pathetic. So let me address the first argument that guy threw out there. I believe he was a former congressman. He said, well, look, the problem is that when the McCain-Feingold legislation, which was campaign finance reform, it was a very vanilla campaign finance reform, when that was in place, what happened is the donor money just got pushed to the PACs because McCain-Feingold limited the amount of money that could go to the parties and to the individual politicians. And he's right about that. The money did go to the PACs. But then he said that, well, you know what, the McCutcheon ruling and the Citizens United ruling, those are actually good rulings because it allows more money to come back to the parties, which are what he calls the center of American democracy. So that's a good thing. So he agrees with the court. But the reason why he's obviously incorrect is that it doesn't matter whether or not the money goes to the PACs or goes to the parties. Either way, it's bad, and either way, it's the same end result. It is the corruption of our politicians to listen to the donors who are giving them the money as opposed to listening to the actual constituents and the American people, which is supposed to be who they listen to. So both of them are bad. I like how they try to make a distinction. Like, oh, don't worry, man. If that money's going to the PACs, there's going to be less corruption going on, and they're not going to listen to those donors. Of course they are. What? They're supposed to not talk to each other and not coordinate with each other, the PACs and the actual politicians themselves and the campaigns, but they do it all the time, man. There was the recent story about how Mitch McConnell released an ad that had no words in it and just video, sound in the background, like songs, and they tried to make it seem like, why did he do this? This is a weird ad. I wonder why he did this. The reason why he did it is because then the PAC can use that B-roll, that ad, and then put their own talking on top of it. So they're finding ways around it. Of course, it doesn't matter whether you're giving money to the PACs or to the parties. It's corruption either way. But this guy's saying, no, if the money comes to the parties, the direct corruption is better than the indirect corruption. So, hey, it's a good thing the McCutcheon ruling came the way it did. What a stupid argument, man. I have a radical idea. How about no corruption? Which leads to the main point. The fact that people still argue with a straight face, and when I say people, I really do only mean the Republican establishment, because your rank-and-file Republicans don't believe this, okay? Your rank-and-file Democrats, of course, don't believe this, and even your Democratic partisans, who I go after all the time, like Obama, for example, and Harry Reid and them, even they have said, look, man, that's ridiculous to say that money equals free speech. You know what the Founding Fathers would have done if they wanted you to think that money equals free speech? They would have wrote in the fucking Constitution, by the way, we also mean money when we say free speech. But they didn't add money. They didn't say the word money. If they said the word money, you would be right. Money equals free speech. They didn't say that. So don't tell me that money equals free speech, because then obviously, if that's the case, the richest people in the country are going to have the loudest voice in a democracy. And that undermines the principle of one man, one vote, and that undermines the principle of equal protection under the law.